presentation mode. So the title of the talk is how to work in data, right? But I guess the subtitle will be something like how to escape the gig economy and have a real job that won't be disrupted by AI. That's kind of the bigger question, right? And I'm going to give you actionable stuff so that after this talk, you have a map, something that you can really follow to start taking steps towards a career in data. And I'm going to also try to show you why it's a good idea to have a career in data. Right. So about me, I've been in AI for 20 years. I did a PhD in the US. I was a painter in a previous life, which doesn't make any sense with making things like PhDs in machine learning. And I'm also in business for a long time. I launched businesses not only in Berlin, but also in San Francisco and in Toronto. And always doing the bootstrap thing. So no investors, no external funding, basically doing the hard way. Okay. So why would you want to start a career in data, right? There are a bunch of technology areas where you can have a career. So why data, right? So I have some ideas about this. And one interesting thing that I don't know how much you want to believe is that um, we had COVID, right? And COVID did a lot of bad things and one very good thing. The one very good thing that it did was that it forced digitalization on companies that would not have digitalized otherwise. So, what does this mean? That means that you get more jobs for people who work in the digital domain. But more than anything else, it gives jobs to people who work with data because suddenly every company started having more data because you could record and transcribe meetings. Like everybody was doing meetings over technology instead of having them in the kitchen table. And right, so this is one thing that is definitely beneficial, right? So, and on top of that, the technology to analyze text, for example, has improved a lot in the last 5 years. So now NLP, natural language processing, has gotten to a point where you can generate language that is virtually indistinguishable from that of a person, probably not a super advanced user of the language, but definitely it can pass for a person for good enough use cases. So you may have heard about autonomous vehicles, about computer vision, and all kind of generative art, fake photos, face, uh, fake text from authors that don't exist, fake video. That's all part of what you get when AI technology gets good, right? By the way, I'm going to use AI. This is actually machine learning that we are going to talk about, but AI is kind of shorter and easier to pronounce. But everything we're going to talk about today is about machine learning, which is how to get machines to generalize from patterns. And the super good advantage that machines have now is that they can understand unstructured information. Before, machines were restricted to things like tables, like tabular data, like an Excel spreadsheet or the equivalent in text, but not something like photos, videos, text, and audio. And now they can process that data, which means a lot more data is available and a lot bigger models can be built on those data sets. Okay, so the dream for everybody is to have machines working for us. And then we humans will just do whatever we want, things that are pleasant for us, and we will have to work, right? That's the dream. And we've gotten pretty far convincing machines to do our work. So I imagine you have a dishwasher or a washing machine at home. Washing clothes by hand is a thing of the past, right? So little by little, more and more tasks are becoming like that. There is a machine that does something for you. And this is really good news, right? And that's the dream. The reverse side of the dream is that more and more jobs are done by machines, and then humans are doing things that they could do before, but now a machine can do them. For example, driving, right? So if you're a truck driver, eventually, nobody knows how soon, eventually you will be out of a job. And the same way that we don't wash clothes by hand, we will not drive trucks by hand. As I say, nobody knows, right? Anything is possible. It could be that this never happens, but it's pretty likely that it does, right? And that is a big downside, right? And why do I bring this point? Because you are in an event where you are surrounded by companies, boot camps that are offering you different options to take a tech career, right? And this is this is kind of a big decision for you, right? You have to go into coding, front end, back end, mobile. There are different things that you will learn, right? And you may want to do that to escape other jobs that are not as pleasant or are not as well paid. And you hope that those jobs are not going to go away, right? Well, so that is the hope, right? And the interesting thing is that machine learning or AI is now good enough that it can generate code for you. And this is particularly worrying if the code that you write is beginner level code, something that this machine could do. So you may have heard of GitHub Copilot. So it's a tool that you can plug into your development environment, like an editor, and you will type text with what you want to write. For example, you see here the comment section of this screenshot. So somebody wants to parse a list of expenses and return a list of triples with date, value, and currency. And this part here, this code was generated by Copilot, which is machine learning. If machine learning can generate code at that level, then we have a problem. We humans who plan to spend our life writing code, right? More so at the junior level, which brings me to a point of why it's a good thing to take a career in data science or in machine learning, because you will not be so exposed to this type of machine learning taking a good part of what you do day to day. Another obvious reason is that salaries are pretty high. So even entry level, even junior positions, this is data for Berlin from Herman, they are pretty high. They are 61, 55. That's pretty decent, right? And companies are hiring a lot now. After COVID, let's see what happens with the effects of the war, of course. But right now, there's a rush for hiring tech talent. Now, the interesting thing is that the hiring that they do is kind of biased in a way that may be interesting for you. So if you are right now in this conference, I'm guessing that you are starting your career, you may have started already, or you are about to start, you are deciding where to go to start your career, right? So you're going to be a junior. And the first thing that I told you is that machines could probably write code that is similar to the one that a junior will write. So you don't want to be a junior. And there is this one reason that machine learning can do this quite well nowadays. It's still not as good as a human for sure, but kind of worryingly close to what a junior developer will do, right? But there's another reason that companies are hiring more seniors now than ever. Um, and that is that it's very hard to onboard juniors in a remote first culture that COVID brought, right? And this could be an important consideration for you if you are joining the industry, right? You will find a lot of comments online of people who say that it's really hard to be onboarded as a junior, and companies know this. So companies are less keen on onboarding or hiring juniors for different reasons, but one of them is that it's very hard to onboard somebody remotely. Right? And then You have this perfect storm of two different reasons. One is that everything is remote pretty much nowadays, and then onboarding becomes more difficult for juniors, and that Copilot is better at writing some programming languages than some junior programmers. And that is kind of a big claim, right? You may not believe this. I have my doubts as well, but it's true that Copilot can do a lot, right? So then this is what I call the junior trap. But before we go there, there's one more interesting data set that I wanted to show you. This is front end average salary. So it's not data science, it's front end. And you see that it's been going up during the pandemic times, right? But it's going up for people with 5+ years experience, right? Everybody else is kind of staying the same. And this is data from Europe, actually. So the y-axis is euros per month. So this is very interesting. So the demand is such that seniors can increase their rates, but juniors and mid-level cannot. This is very interesting. Okay, so with these two reasons, three if you count the graph about money, right? Then let me introduce you to what I call the junior trap, right? The junior trap is that if you hire a junior, it's hard to onboard, it's hard to reach value given a stage, and they are easier to replace with automation. I don't think companies are thinking that way yet, but at some point, maybe this is something that they factor in. So how do you escape the junior trap? So these are my takeaways after being in the industry for 8 years, right? By the way, we Data Science Retreat, we try to get you out of the label junior as soon as possible. Sometimes you don't even enter the marketplace at the junior level. Sometimes you enter as a junior, but you move forward quite fast. So that's how we want to operate, right? So one way to escape the junior trap is to network with other seniors and learn culture by osmosis. And you do that, huh, it's I'm surprised by how easy it is to reach senior people and how willing they are to share what they know if you paint yourself as somebody who is willing to learn and who is willing to learn what they are doing in particular. So if somebody is known for some library work that they've done and you ask questions about that library, they're going to be happy to talk to you. And if you can just look at them code, sometimes they can do that. They sometimes they code in public. They code on YouTube or on a meetup. They do live coding. Then figure out what they're doing that is different because it's something somewhat cultural what they do, like how they Google for error messages, how they manage their environment, how they write code by not copy pasting or by not going to Stack Overflow. Those things you can learn and you can act like a more senior programmer, even if you are not there yet. And first, you will be just imitating, mimicking. At some point, it will become second nature, and it will be much easier to get through an interview without looking like a junior. Then a big thing is to learn how to learn, right? One thing is for sure, whatever you are learning today is going to be obsolete soon, much sooner than you expect, more so if you are in machine learning. Things go into fashion and out of fashion really fast in machine learning. So you have to figure out how to keep learning the entire time that you are in tech. And this is a skill that is tangential to the actual skill of coding, but you can learn that. Just find the person that you know that learns the fastest and figure out what they are doing different. Then learning fundamentals is also kind of crucial. Sometimes you can tell that somebody's junior because they don't really understand what they're doing. They're using very high level abstractions in libraries. And if you ask questions about fundamentals, they don't know. So I'm not talking about learning C and how memory management is done by hand in C, but understanding how the web works, how protocols work, why they are working that way, how WebSockets are different from HTTP requests, these kind of things. Sometimes people don't know the answer to those questions, and you can mm, actually answer fundamental questions if you practice for that, not only the typical library questions, right? And then this is a big one. If you can show that you have a project that you've done and can solve a real problem, that you can solve things that problems that people have, right? That is huge. That is what we call commercial awareness. Very few people have it in tech. And kind of the culture sometimes in a company is such that they push that to product people and they don't let others to make any decisions about product. I think that is probably not a good idea. And if you can demonstrate that you can pick good projects and pick good features and implement them, that puts you in a different category. You are never going to be seen as a junior if you have a project that you can show, you can demonstrate that it's really killing. Okay, so that's another, maybe perhaps the last point here is that you have to think about what value you deliver doing what you're doing. So imagine that you join a company and they tell you to work on project A. Project A may not be the thing that gives the most value to the company, and you are in your probation period. You may want to pick a project that is better suited to deliver value soon, right? By all means, try to find that project and try to join it or start it yourself. And that's a very non junior thing to do. So if you communicate in an interview that you are like that, nobody's going to consider you a junior. So, very important that you do this. And this is again something cultural, something that is not really about code, right? And now I'm going to go in the how to work with data part, the second half of the talk, right? And to cut the story short, just pay attention to solving problems. And this is surprisingly not that common that people think problem first, because technology is such that you have so many tools that you may want to be solving problems with the tools that you have, but problems that somebody else found, somebody else who may not know what is possible. And this is where you come in as a non junior person who can understand the problem part of it. So the business side may think that they have exclusivity on finding problems. That's not true. You can find problems, and then if you communicate that you can find problems, not only solving them, but you can find them, that is super valuable. And this is what I'm going to try to describe how to do that in the next few slides. Okay, so starting with the problem sounds reasonable. How do you do that well, right? So to work in data, you need to know what you can solve right now. And sometimes that comes with knowing what is possible in machine learning. How do you do that? Okay, let's take something that is actually quite old by now. It's 2018. So this is a video of a tool that will make fake videos of somebody dancing. Whoops, let me go back. Sorry. Um, I guess here I have to click on the video. Let me know if you can hear the audio from this video, right? So what this video does is it takes a person that doesn't know how to dance and then it projects the moves of somebody who does into the beginner. So let me go somewhere else. Like, so these two people don't know how to dance. They are doing something that is just moving their hands, right? So let's go to the most difficult part. This is what they are doing in reality. And this is how they look after. Okay, so now you know that this is possible. So this is pretty cool that you can do this. And you know, the people who are finding problems for you to solve, they may not know that this is possible because you don't see any apps right now using that type of technology, right? Why not is a big question. It's an important question too. But what if you are the person that comes to the company that hire you and says, well, this is possible and we can do that with our project, with the product that we have right now. This is going to take you into a completely different direction if you can do that, right? Then how do you know what is possible today? So I have some hints here. One is to follow influential people in anywhere you can find them. On Twitter, it's a good place to find them. They normally talk about what projects are really im- impressive right now. So you can go to the original blog post or paper even and learn about what you can do with that new technology that just arrived to the market, right? There's also a rule of thumb that anything that a person can do that takes less than 1 second, and it's not something really about careful thinking, a machine can do already or will be able to do it very soon. Then, with that rule of thumb, you can go and check what things you as a human do, like distinguishing dogs from cats, sub-second, no real deep thinking there, right? Deciding somebody is apt for a job, not so easy, right? You probably don't do that in under a second. So that's something that machine learning cannot do right now. And just with this rule of thumb, you could detect things that are good enough for a project or not, and you could bring a lot of value to the company if you are able to do this. And another way to pick up good ideas is to hang out in places like Reddit, where you normally see people talking about the really new things that are happening in the field. There is another website that you may not know, which is Papers with Code. Papers with Code is exactly what it says. It's papers that are normally new research that have a GitHub repository with code, right? And normally, when there is a conference, there's a major one called NeurIPS that happens every year. And last time it was like 11,000 people. So that's how many people are doing machine learning nowadays. And the people going there are only people who are the front end of the field, right? If you are like me, you only can go maybe once every 2 years or so, or you can never go, then follow people who are there and are blogging about what they see, because normally they are bringing the new stuff really fast online. And then the papers with code that are in that conference, they get a lot of votes in this papers with code website. So that will give you a lot of power to know what is available to you as a technologist, right? Okay, that's what is possible, right? But we're talking that it's actually secondary, that finding the problem is actually very powerful and you should do it because that's something that seniors do and not juniors, right? So how do you find problems? So try to understand one domain that is tech shy. I call that to domains who are not very adept at technology, and that's probably every domain other than technology. So we're going to see an example with pharmacy, right? Pharmacies don't strike to me as the place where technology innovation is happening. So there are things that are repetitive, and if you know that in your domain things are not very tech savvy, that's a wonderful place to dig in and to try to find things that you can improve if you know what's possible with machine learning, right? And the good thing is that people talk about their problems, so you just have to listen. Sometimes you are an outsider to the field, and then there is problems that are solvable in that field, but they don't know. And that's where you come in. You say, hey, you know what? I know that this problem is solvable. If you know that, you can demonstrate, you can create a proof of concept, you can do something interesting that without any doubt demonstrates that you can definitely um, um, solve a problem, then this is this is good, and this is going to give a completely different view from you. So whoever hires you is not going to see you as a junior, and this is one important reason to go that way, right? Okay, so let's talk about one portfolio project from last batch. So by the way, you can always attend the public demo days at Data Science Retreat. We streamed on YouTube. So this was a good example of finding a good problem because you know a domain very well. So the domain was pharmacy, and there was a frontline person. So Sina was the leader of this project, and she was a pharmacist, and she wanted to study machine learning because she thought that, well, this field is not very tech savvy, and she could create products there that would be valuable, right? So she was a front person, the person that answers questions in front of the pharmacy, right? So she knew that questions are coming over and over again, and maybe you can get an AI to answer the questions, right? So they built a proof of concept website that I linked here. So I don't think it's going to work if I click on it right now, because also we don't have that much time. But you can go to YouTube and see their talk and see how they did a live demo where you could ask questions like, can I take an aspirin and drink? Or um, do antibiotics work with viruses? Or what is the medicine that I need to take for COVID if I have a COVID infection? So those are typical questions that you may get as a pharmacist. And because the technology is such that you can build this right now, they built a question answering system that made a lot of sense. And they did that in a live demo during demo day. So if you can do that in 3 months, which is what the course lasts, why are companies not doing this at a scale, right? There's a lot of opportunity, there is a lot of low hanging fruit, and it's just like such a good time to be alive to be able to build products like this. Because something that people don't understand is that you can build these things in your kitchen table, in your underpants. Like the libraries are there, pre-trained models are there. And it's just a matter of plugging in a good problem to a monster model that you downloaded from somewhere, and just tweak the parameters so that the model fits the new domain. And this is what most people do at data science retreat for demo day projects, right? So my two recommendations is try not to look like a junior, and I gave you a few examples of how you can do that. And also try to go into machine learning, because that's a place where you will be recession proof, kind of. Nobody's going to take your job away. If you are a beginner front-end programmer or even a Python programmer backend, it's kind of questionable if your job is going to still exist in a few years' time, right? So try to be one of those guys who cannot be replaced. And how can you get into a domain if you're, for example, Sina was a pharmacist, so you are not a pharmacist. How do you find a domain where you can do this? Well, there's a technique of 10 meetings that you can do. So you find anybody in the industry who will take a meeting with you. Imagine that you want to join the pharmacy industry. So you find anybody who wants to talk to you, and you invite them for coffee, and you will ask very beginner questions in the first meeting. But after 20 minutes, you thank them for the time, and you ask them, is there anybody else that I will talk to? I want to get into your field, and I love to talk to people in the field. Then you get a second meeting, perhaps introduced by the first person. By the second meeting, you have the vocabulary of what you want to ask, and you have more refined questions because the first person gave you a lot of insight of jargon that they use in their field, and you can go and do this 10 times. By meeting number 10, you're an insider. That's how you learn the problems of a domain that you don't know anything about. Okay, so now it's time to tell you why you should do data science retreat and not anything else with your life. So, oops. How we are different, right? So I built DSR so that if you come totally new to machine learning, you get the most value you can get. So it took me a long time, a PhD time, to get into the field back then, 20 years ago. Now it's much easier to get into a field as difficult as machine learning. So one thing that we do is that we get one teacher per topic. So everybody who teaches at DSR is doing the thing that they're teaching during their day job, and they teach the one thing that they know very well and leave. Then the next person comes, does the same, they leave. And after 400 hours of that, there is no way around. You get much better. So teachers are pretty advanced people who have done impressive things like winning Kaggle competitions, being grandmasters, writing a book, writing a library that everybody uses. Daniel Godoy has written probably the best PyTorch book there is right now. It's a 3-volume monster. Um, and the people who are going to be sitting with you are pretty advanced people. So when others see this slide, when I'm pitching to companies, for example, they say, "Oh, these are the teachers." I say, "No, no, no, these are the students." So this is okay. We also do company trainings. We train Volkswagen, for example. So the people doing the self-driving car right now are trained by us at Volkswagen. And some of our graduates, they went on to become C-level people. And well, actually, Konstantinos is now at Facebook. Jörg is running a startup that was named the second most best company to work for in Germany, something like this. And okay, so the curriculum matches these things. We get these guys who are doing the advanced stuff in industry because the curriculum is very advanced, and we are training you for things that are not in industry yet, but will be soon, eventually. So we are not training you for the interview, for the bare minimum to pass an interview. No, 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 no. We want you to know the things that will be popular in industry 2 years from now. And then we give you a portfolio project that will make you be memorable. Ideally, you plop in your portfolio project on top of the table when you're interviewing, and that's the end of the interview. You just point at it, and that's it. No question asked. And this will be something that will make the eyebrow effect. People will go like this when they hear what you've done, and they will probably talk to their partner over dinner, like, "Wow, I interviewed this guy, and they did this, this, and this. Wow, I didn't know this was possible. This is what we want you to be able to do." And the upcoming batches are coming, so you can join us. We take the voucher from the Arbeitsamt, and this is the most advanced course in Europe, probably in the world, to learn machine learning today. So thank you for your attention, and happy to take questions if you have any. I'm going to exit presentation then, perhaps. Oh, no, I guess I don't have to. Anybody wants to talk? You can also type in the chat any questions. Okay, so if, there's here. Right, previous experience, very good question. So if you go to our website in the curriculum area, we have some recommendations about things that you can study. We do ask in the interview some basic technical questions, but sometimes you don't have to. If your profile, if you can demonstrate to me in the interview that you can learn things on your own, I'm not going to set you back because you don't know the answer to some questions that I may ask you, right? So just there's an interview and it's technical, and the prerequisites are on the website, but they are pretty light. Some very basic knowledge of Python, some very basic knowledge of machine learning. And some people have done it without any background knowledge. Some people were journalists, were economists, but they also kind of studied that on their own time. Good question. Right. So the cost is 10,500 now because we are VAT exempt. We used to be 12.5K. And that is covered by Arbeitsamt if you can get the voucher. So if you are unemployed and you have paid taxes in Germany, I imagine, then you can get it covered by the unemployment office, which is new. The last 7.5 years, we didn't have that, and we had people coming from all over the world and paid the 12.5K. Oh, half time. No, it's super intense. So the main worry that I have is that if we do anything else from what we are doing right now, people will not perform as well as they do when they go and do jobs, right? So, of course, it makes sense to go Yeah. We can go to the booth to keep answering questions. So the answer is no. We don't have anything lighter than what we have right now. Okay, so I see you in the booth then.